Hi, this is David Miller, and I'm here with the first in a series of 5 mini-lectures on Philip Pullman's novel, The Golden Compass. Today, we're going to talk about the Daughters' Rebellion. Pullman's story unfolds across 3 novels: The Golden Compass, in which we meet Lyra; The Subtle Knife, in which Lyra and her male counterpart Will Perry venture into other worlds; and The Amber Spyglass, in which all the lines of action converge in a restaging of the biblical and Miltonic War in Heaven. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? The Golden Compass, the first novel, is also divided into 3 parts, named for the principal locations in which the action takes place: Oxford, where Lyra has grown up; Bolvangar, where she goes to rescue the children kidnapped by the Gobblers; and Svalbard, the kingdom of the armored bears, where she goes to find Lord Asriel and bring him the alethiometer. Part 1 of the novel is also divided into 3s, with 3 movements of 3 chapters each, for a total of 9 chapters. Across these movements, Lyra passes from one adult caretaker to another, from the scholars at Jordan College, Oxford, to Mrs. Coulter in London, and finally to the Egyptians. At the end of Part 1, she is sailing north to Lapland, with Egyptian expedition mounted to rescue the children taken by the Gobblers. The novel opens with a scene of disobedience. You can see in retrospect how it's modeled on the Eden story. Already living up to her role as the new Eve, Lyra defies the patriarchal order of things in a quest for forbidden knowledge. She steals into the college retiring room, a space females are not permitted to enter, and hides there just in time to witness an attempted assassination. In the second chapter, we learn about dust and are introduced to the possibility of other worlds. Lord Asriel shows a photogram of the northern lights, the aurora borealis, which Lyra hears as roars. In the photogram, the outlines of a city are visible in the sky. This, of course, is another piece of biblical typology based on descriptions of the New Jerusalem in Revelations, and it launches the central mystery around which a great deal of the action across all 3 novels of the trilogy will revolve. The chapter ends with a conversation between the college master and librarian that reveals a good deal of background information, including certain mysterious predictions that the alethiometer has made about Lyra and a great betrayal she must commit. The third chapter backs us away from the immediate action to describe Lyra's life and world in Oxford. Much as the conversation in Chapter 2 gave us some background about the larger political and historical forces at work in the world Lyra inhabits, this chapter begins by describing the local politics among different bands of children who play at warfare with each other. I think we're supposed to recognize that Lyra is about to pass from one set of war games to another more dangerous set on a much larger scale. Later in the story, at key moments, and you can watch for this, Lyra will recall her days of combat on the mudflats as a source of strategic inspiration. The first movement in Oxford closes with the discovery that children are vanishing. We get our first glimpse of Mrs. Coulter as she snares a little boy named Tony Makarios, who joins a group of children taken from their parents and about to be shipped off to some unknown destination. When Billy Costa and Lyra's friend Roger both disappear, Lyra decides she must find them. The second movement interrupts Lyra's quest before it has really begun. Mrs. Coulter appears at Jordan College to remove Lyra into her own custody. Lyra, having grown up without any female role model at all, is charmed and fascinated by this powerful, glamorous figure, especially when she learns that Mrs. Coulter has already done the very thing Lyra dreams of doing, traveling on an expedition to the north to investigate its mysteries. Before leaving with Mrs. Coulter, Lyra has a strange conversation with the master of Jordan College, In this hurried, secret meeting, he gives her the alethiometer and warns her about Mrs. Coulter. Lyra will spend a good deal of time puzzling over the meaning of the master's vague warnings, but for the present she is utterly caught up in the sophisticated London world to which Mrs. Coulter introduces her. An important feature of this world is the training Mrs. Coulter gives Lyra in the arts of femininity, from personal hygiene to manners and behavior. Chapter 5, The Cocktail Party, brings a major turning point in the action. Lyra has been with Mrs. Coulter for about 6 weeks when she discovers the iron fist inside the velvet glove. Her first attempt at disobedience in London is squashed with the kind of adult force Lyra has never encountered before, except from Lord Asriel. I think it's significant that Lyra, who seems almost completely fearless, is frightened by her uncle, and then again by Mrs. Coulter's ruthless anger. The episode in which Lyra is disciplined happens just before the cocktail party that gives this chapter its title. At the party, Lyra overhears a conversation that provides her and us with important background information. We learn that the mysterious gobblers get their name not from the fact that they eat children, shades of Charles Dickens, you see, but from the initials of the General Oblation Board. These discoveries prompt Lyra to run away. Chapter 6 narrates her dangerous entry into the London night world, complete with a smooth-talking sexual predator in a white silk muffler who wants to put brandy in her coffee. That's an episode that occurs with many variations in dozens of Victorian novels, including, of course, some by Dickens. When she is captured by strange men who throw nets over her, the Gyptians, who are pursuing the gobblers to recover their own children, rescue Lyra. The second movement closes as she sets off with Ma Costa and the others to attend a gathering of Gyptian families called a roping, at which a plan will be formed to rescue the missing children. It's clear at this point that Lyra's two most powerful wishes, to journey to the north and to rescue Roger, are coming back into view. An important moment in Chapter 5 occurs when Lyra begins to fantasize that Mrs. Coulter and Lord Asriel will fall in love and adopt her, and that they will all go to rescue Roger from the gobblers. This is an important moment because it represents an early attempt by Lyra to imagine a shape for her own story. You'll see in the later parts of Volume 1 that Lyra's fantasy is both right and wrong. Mrs. Coulter and Lord Asriel have already fallen in love, and out again, and Lyra herself is the illegitimate product of their union. They won't rescue Roger, but as you read the rest of the trilogy, you will see that Lyra does, in fact, bring her parents back together. And she wins the battle of competing stories. Their efforts to make her a minor character in the stories they are trying to tell give way to a story that features their daughter as protagonist, while they wind up in supporting roles. The third movement introduces Lyra to two new characters, both very important to the story: John Faa, Lord of the Gyptians, and Farder Coram, a kind of seer who knows about many things, including the alethiometer. It's interesting to me that both of these men have names that sound like the word father. In different ways, each of them serves as a surrogate father to Lyra. In this chapter, she learns not only that Lord Asriel and Mrs. Coulter are her real parents, but that Ma Costa was her foster mother many years earlier. An improvement over Juliet's nurse, to be sure, but the relationship is similar. We begin to see more clearly how Lyra is moving through a series of surrogate parents, a recognition that prepares us for her later relationships with Yorick Burnison, Serafina Pekkala, and Lee Scoresby. In Chapter 8, we see Lyra responding to what she has learned about her own history. She does so in part by inventing tales of her mighty father and by questioning Ma Costa. She keeps adding details to the event Ma Costa describes to her as if they were her own memories. Pullman is having fun here, treating Lyra as if she were a writer, adding artistic touches to a narrative. This is true to her character and her name. It becomes very clear over the course of the trilogy that Lyra must learn how to turn her gift for lying into a gift for using fiction to tell the most important kinds of truth about life. But it's also true to her immediate situation, for of course, Lyra's inventions are not meant to falsify the truth of what Ma Costa relates to her. They are Lyra's way of taking ownership of the stories, making them her own. Meanwhile, John Fa and the Egyptians are gathering men and money and finalizing a plan to go after the missing children. The chapter title, Frustration, refers to Lord Fa's refusal to let Lyra come along. In the concluding chapter of Part 1, Lyra learns to read the alethiometer, and because it has begun to speak to her, John Fa relents, permitting her to join the expedition to Lapland. Part 1 ends with Lyra and her demon Pan sailing north with the Egyptians and beginning to feel seasick. We'll end there too. Next time, we'll pick up the action in Bolvangar, where things start to get exciting and dangerous.